Okay, I'm going to start with you obviously in Illustrator, you've made your logo and you want to now import it into Animate so you can start animating it. You've got your layers here, so if you want to preserve your layers, which we do, then we need to save as an Illustrator document. So if you go to File and Save As, so you can give it a name. Okay, and then you don't need to change any of the settings here, you can just OK it, that's fine. If you move into Animate, open up Animate, just delete that for a minute. So move into Animate. Now, actually I'll just step through this bit and just close that. So File and New, or Create New in the Welcome screen, you'll see the Create New button. And this time we'll select Web, so this is going to be for display on the internet. Select Web. If you go to High Quality, 960 by 640 here, keep all the other settings the same. We've got a frame rate of 24. Just make sure it's a platform type. If you change the type to actually, no, if we stick with HTML5 canvas, so make sure it's HTML5 canvas and create. Okay, and then file and import and import to stage. Navigate to where you save the Illustrator file, open it up, and this is where you'll get the notification, do you want to import all the layers? So it should be automatically ticked, but make sure select all layers is ticked, and then it's going to convert those to animate layers. So it's a nice kind of workflow between the two. They work together really neatly, Illustrator and Animate, or any of the Adobe applications. So we'll import those in, and there we go. It automatically creates two layers, which replicates what we had in Illustrator. We've got the text on one layer and the background on another. Okay. What we can also do is, if you wanted to set, so for example, if you wanted to animate the text, the letters separately, we can break them apart. So if you right click on the text and go to break apart, then we've made them in separate objects. Now I'm going to kind of recap on something we did a while ago, which was animating text. So I'm going to use the L as an example. Again, this applies to any of the other letters or the background, but we'll focus on the L for the minute. So we're going to animate the L. It's going to kind of swoop around, and then it's going to land on the background. So firstly, we want to turn it into a movie clip, if you remember. And if you remember to do that, you press F8 on your keyboard, and we will call it letter L. Keep the naming literal. Make sure it's a movie clip. Just put the registration point in the middle and OK it. And you'll see that changes to that kind of blue outline with the cross in the middle that indicates the center of the movie clip. And then we want to start the animation. So obviously with animation it's time based, so we need to look down at the timeline here and think, okay, roughly how long is it going to take for our L to kind of swoop around the stage and land on the background. So if we block in frames, say up to about 4 seconds, we'll go with 5, go to 5 seconds here, and remember you can zoom in and out on the timeline here. So I'm going to zoom in on the timeline slightly, click at 5 seconds. Now I also want the background to still be visible when we get to 5 seconds, so if I hold down shift and click underneath there, so we're at 5 seconds on the layer 2 as well. Press F5, and if you remember that blocks, it extends our keyframe to 5 seconds. And then really, now I think what the other important point is, and again it's just an organizational thing that helps as well, we create a separate layer now for the L, so we can just deal with it separately. So I'm just going to create another layer. So if you remember, that's the plus icon in the layer panel here. So if I click on that, I'm going to name that L, keep it simple. I'm going to name layer 2 background. Time being, okay, so we know where we are there. So with the letter L, actually no, I'll keep that at the top. If I select that letter L from layer 1 here, I'm going to cut it out, okay, and very simple, I'm going to then paste in place. So if we go to edit, paste in place, and that's going to paste it in the same place on the L layer. So now I'm going to add a tween. Okay. Now what I want to happen is I want the L to kind of swoop around, and then it's going to land here, and then it's going to remain here for a period of time. So what I'll do for the time being, I think at 3 seconds it's going to actually, sorry, what I'm going to do is extend this a bit actually. So I think when it gets to 5 seconds it's going to land here, and then it's going to stay still for, say, if we say another 5 seconds. So if we go up to 10 seconds here, and if we shift click again and press F5, and we've extended the block up to there, and then here at 5 seconds where it stops, I'm going to place a keyframe. So if we press F6 there, that's where the kind of swooping around is going to stop. So now I'm going to right click between these two keyframes and place a motion tween. Okay, and then at this final keyframe here, actually let me do this in stages. So say when we get to 2 seconds, I want the L to have moved, say, over to here. Now if you remember, this creates a motion path, so the computer has immediately animated that animation between those two keyframes for us, but I don't want it to follow a straight line, so I can mouse over the motion path and I can manipulate it. So I want it to kind of swoop across to this point. Okay, and then I want it, when it gets to here, okay, I want it to, so again just to the end of the tween, I'm going to move it again across to here. This is where I want it to end up. Now we can use a grid. If I go to view and grid and show grid, this can sometimes help with alignment. And again I want to manipulate this motion path a bit. So maybe I want it to kind of arc across here a bit. Okay, so we've basically got it following this path, and it settles at this point. The other thing I thought would be good, and we looked at this last time, was scaling it as well. So it's going to start off slightly smaller. So if we just scrub back to the first keyframe here, select the L, I'm going to scale it down a bit. Okay, and then that will keep it. So if I move the mouse to the end of the tween, okay, and then scale it up to the size I want it to end up at. Again, you can do these scales more precisely if you use the properties panel. So again, if you remember, if you go to window, you've got all the panels here that you can access. So if I select properties here, you'll see the properties panel becomes visible. And if you click on position and scale, position and size, then you can sort of more precisely control the width and the height of the object here. Okay, I'm going to do it by eye using the transform tool for the time being. So that then tweens that scale as well. Okay, and the final thing I wanted to do was, and again we did this last time, going from kind of out of focus to in focus. So again, if we select the L, sorry, the properties panel's disappeared again. We just select properties and drag that panel free so it stays there permanently. Clip it back into place there. To do that, if you remember, you go to filters on the properties panel, click on the plus here, select blur, and then we can control the blur level here with the sliders. So make it reasonably blurred, and then if we mouse to the end, you'll see it remains blurred, but we want it to now become clear. So if we go back to blur here and set this to 0, there you go, we've got a nice twist. Now yeah. Sorry, this is a little quirk here. That now, when you mouse back against the first keyframe, it returns to clear on the first keyframe. So you just need to select on that first keyframe again, and just select the blur again. I'll set it to 13. Again, if you want precise values, you can click on the value and type in 13 again, and it will stay now blurred on that first keyframe. And you'll see it gradually clears and scales at the same time. Yeah. So again, you can do this with all the letters. They can be moving around and flying around in different patterns, formations, and then arriving on the background here. So if we test that, so if we just go to Control and Test, we'll test it in the browser, so you'd see what it would look like if it was to appear on the internet. So you can see it's moving fairly slowly at the moment. Now if I feel that that's too slow, there's two things I can do. I can increase the frame rate. Okay, so I can select the frame rate, I can put it up to, I don't know, 40. So I'll double it, 48. And test again. That's probably the best way, to be honest. If you think it's too slow, just to increase the frame rate. So there you go, it's just sped up a bit. Or the other thing I can do is I can go to the timeline and I can just reduce the length of the tween here, remove some frames. To remove frames, so say I wanted to remove from all layers of block here, I just click up here, hold down shift, click down here, you can see I've selected a chunk there, just right click and remove frames, and that's just like editing it down, yeah, just chops that bit out. That's another way, but I think reducing the frame rate is the best way to do it. So to get to the frame rate, if you click on the black area, dark grey area here around the stage, that gives you the properties of the whole movie, and you can see the FPS, frames per second there, you can alter them there. Okay, so that's it.